shoots, along with Musa, who is a fiery, fiery character in the graphic novel. And they kind of represent this brown revolution future, right? They represent everything that is not green shoots. And then you have Yona, who wants to modernize, who is being funded by green shoots as well, and believes that there is another way. So we didn't want to paint anybody in a wrong or right light. But what we did is that through dialogue, through this tension, we wanted to bring about these conversations. Yes, should I say how it ends? No.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. That's awesome. And nice to also get a little sneaky preview from behind the scenes as well, the thinking. So Zara, so I can take it back to you now, please. Thank you.
The book, the graphic novel, looks at this company called Green Shoots. The larger context in which I think we can think about multinational corporations like Green Shoots is to understand how the industrial food system is changing. So for example, at ETC Group about 25 years ago, we were looking at how the different sectors of the food system, seeds, pesticides, and different inputs were controlled by 10 companies. Now we're looking at the food system being controlled by 4 to 6 companies. So there's more and more corporate concentration in the global food system, in the industrial food system. We're not talking about peasant or agroecological systems. And so, for example, you have just 4 companies, Syngenta, Bayer, BASF, and Corteva, that control half of the world's commercial seeds. So that's not farmer-controlled seeds, but crop seeds that are often genetically modified and that are being pushed for farmers to use. And these 4 companies also control 64% of the world's pesticide market. So they are exerting more and more control over the food system, and this is becoming more and more of a problem also in the South. And so the corporate control of the food system we've been looking at, basically you can look at 3 trends in what's been going on. One is that a lot of the food system is now becoming digital. So you see this convergence of big tech companies with big agribusiness companies. So for example, Microsoft, Apple, Alibaba, together with the big agribusiness companies. And the idea is to actually have access to data from farmers and from farms that can then be used. So data itself is now a commodity that is being channeled out of agriculture and to these big tech companies and agribusiness companies. The other trend we see with corporate control of the food system is that there's more and more corporations coming from the South, so China, India, Brazil, that is also now changing the food system. So we're not just looking at northern dominance of the South. We're looking at also other corporations that are emerging elsewhere. And so, for example, the Swiss company Syngenta was bought by China in 2017. And then under Syngenta, you have 2 state-owned companies, that's ChemChina and Sinochem, that merged in 2021. So that is huge. That's a huge entity. And what that means is that industrial farm inputs, seeds, pesticides, fertilizers, are all under this one umbrella, which is very scary to think of all that under one entity. And so China has now become the economic center for global pesticide production, more than even the US and the EU. And then the third thing we see is that in the food system you have asset management companies and other financial actors that are becoming more involved in food and agriculture, and they are very, very shady, very hard to understand, not very transparent. So it's hard for civil society to even know who is controlling what. And you know, the narrative that we hear, and we hear it also all over, you know, in Kenya, is that you know, that we have a food system that has all these crises, climate change, pandemic, all these things, and we need these entities to help us fix it. We need digital agriculture, we need hybrid seeds, we need all these things that are going to help us with these crises. But if we look at the food system today, you see that actually these entities have profited from the pandemic. They've actually managed to hike up prices. And because there's so much consolidation, they have more and more control over the food system. So that's kind of the big picture of corporate control in the context of green shoots. And I think in the book, it's not like a huge entity like Syngenta, it's a smaller multinational. But what's interesting is I think there are aspects, if I'm right, of digital farming through this multinational, and I seem to remember drones and things like that. And so it's really important to understand when this narrative is coming up of farmers need digital farming because it's more efficient, it will help them use less land. It's actually, there's a lot of big interest behind it. And what's happening is they're not being given these tools for free. Their data is actually being taken from them. So that's really important to understand. And so, for example, in Kenya, we have an example of DigiFarm, which is a platform managed by Safaricom. And it provides farmers with chatbot services, like one called Arifu. And so they're sold inputs and crop insurance. They get loans. They can buy and sell their produce via M-Pesa. But farmers have to conform to the system. They have to buy the inputs that are sold on credit at high interest rates. They have to follow the advice of the chatbot to have the crop insurance. They receive payment on a digital app, but there is a fee. And if they make any missteps, it actually affects their credit worthiness and their access to markets. So, I mean, I think in the book, Chief, you mentioned contract farming. This is an example of contract farming. And so we're seeing these little digital entities and multinationals sort of taking over. The other thing I found interesting about green shoots is the name. You use green shoots, sounds so sustainable and nice, and you also see that in the food system. You see that a lot of companies are talking about climate smart agriculture. So just in January, there was a food summit in Dakar where they said, oh, we need climate smart agriculture to help Africa feed the world. And it sounds really nice because yes, we have a climate crisis, but what they don't tell you is that climate smart agriculture can include things like spraying fields with toxic herbicides so that you don't plow the soil and release carbon into the atmosphere. It also can include turning land into big plantations, which are climate smart because they don't require, let's say, nitrogen fertilizers. Yeah. So, there are all these ways in which these big corporations are co-opting language that sound very sustainable. Their names sound very good. The same thing goes, they also talk about regenerative farming, which is another example of, it can be all sorts of things. And you have Cargill, Unilever, all the big companies that are actually, using this language, but this can also include pesticides, GMOs, and so on. So.
Thank you so much, Zara. And I think also, we're seeing the same trend. I just want to pick up on what you mentioned around fertilizers, but we're seeing really worrying consolidation of power from the major fossil fuel companies with agrochemical companies because pesticides and fertilizers specifically are fossil fuels in another form. And so this is a huge problem, and the same issues with greenwashing. We're talking about blue ammonia, which is supposed to be better because it depends on carbon offsets, on carbon capture, but it's not necessarily doing much good in the overall production line of fertilizers. So that's another, maybe a topic also for another day. CD, we see the novel starts out, we see protest in the beginning, we see again protest action at the end. This is a major expression of power and agency. In KPL, or from KPL's experience, how have you used freedom of expression and peaceful protest to further give visibility to your work, to your call to action, and what impact can it have?
Yeah, thank you so much. Freedom of expression is very, very important and fundamental to good governance, because if the citizens cannot freely express themselves, then it means that the government is repressive and the people lose their rights. So within KPL, first of all, it is very important for protests are allowed in the Kenyan Constitution under Article 37. Unfortunately, we have had situations whereby the police rise to us and tell us, you cannot protest, you must give us notice 48 hours. And then when you give them notice, they tell you, there's terrorism alert, or ABCD, so you have to wait for another 2 weeks. I remember when we were organizing a protest against the lifting of the ban on GMOs, Komben Ganga, who is here, we sent him to go to the central police station to go and deliver the notice. But the guy was saying, oh, you know, we have a new government in power, we need to give the government time to settle. But how can we give them time to settle, yet they are already clawing back on our rights? So we pushed back, and ultimately they allowed us to go to the protest. And we also asked the OCS to give us police for security, because he said there was terrorism. And then now we told him, you have to give us the police to secure us from those terrorists, which he did. And we have seen several protests taking place in Kenya, which have brought fundamental changes. I remember the Unga Revolution protest that we organized with comrades from Bunge la Mwananchi. And the protest was against the rising cost of living. And we saw the government, when the government saw that the protest was picking up, they came up with, it's called Unga ya Mtaa, 70 shillings. Although we are saying Unga 30 bob, but they said, okay, now we are going to have another Unga which will be distributed. So yes, protests are very important. And around the case, you see, we went to the National Biosafety Authority offices. The OCS at Spring Valley told us that, you know, this is a high-end area, it is in low ratio, we can't allow protests to go on. So we had to devise a strategy. He asked, how many people are going to be? To be 500. They say, oh, no, that's a big number. You can't come there, 500 people. We have offices there, blah, blah, blah. Then we came by the strategy and told you, okay, now we won't protest, but we will just assemble at the NBS office. How many are you? I can only allow 10 people. Then we said, fine. But then we went at night and did a reconnaissance and the routes. So we stationed guys in several spaces. So we came in, 10 people, we presented the petition, but immediately we got out, the other groups joined us. And we did a protest leaving the office. So in Kenya, sometimes it can be very difficult to organize a protest, especially if you are afraid, because they can call you and tell you, if somebody dies, you will be responsible. If a property is destroyed, you're going to be responsible. So many people cow. But what I can say is that peaceful protests are very, very much important in holding the government to account. And one thing that the movements of the civil society, because if you look at, sometimes we leave politicians to lead protests on our behalf. Like right now, the price of gas has gone up. And yet they're telling us to curb climate change, let's use gas. And then you are pushing the price up. It means guys are going to go to charcoal or to other unclean sources of energy. So we need to rise up as Kenyans. We need to rise up as Kenyans. We need to mobilize, because sometimes in Kenya, unfortunately, most of the protests, you must pay people. So, kutakuwa na kitu kidogo. Yet, you are suffering because of that action. So commercialization of protests, NGOization of protests, because we have got big NGOs that pays for protests. When they come to Kangemi, they pay people to come to the meetings. So tomorrow when we go to Kangemi, they but so paid us yesterday. Why can't you pay us? You are eating our money. So that is also affecting the ability of Kenyans to organize. We need to have organic organizations. And that's why our movements need to be rooted on a specific ideology. So that the people who are joining that particular movement join knowing that this is something that we are fighting for, and it is our responsibility. The Article 3 of the Constitution of Kenya says that every Kenyan has a responsibility to defend and protect the Constitution. It means that article alone has made everyone an activist. So when you are seated somewhere and you are seeing a chief messing up and you are silent, you are breaking Article 3 and you can be sued for that. So let's stand up and defend our rights. Thank you.
Santi.
Hello? Can I just say that I spent a lot of time on your website, and I spent a lot of time on your Twitter and social media at the very beginning while doing the research, and a lot of the CCW are modeled on you guys. So yeah, you guys had a very big influence on the book.
Okay, cool. Except CCW is Chama cha Wakulima.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Washa, so we're seeing protests happening here, protests happening at the county government. There's always this politics in Kenya around national government and county governments, especially because agriculture is a devolved function. From your work, can you Can you talk to us a little bit about this? How do these tensions play out? What is the role and relevance of county governments and institutions, especially improving the situation for smallholder farmers?
Okay, thank you, Leila. And when talking about county governments, I think agriculture is rightfully devolved because the context for each county is very different. And I'll give just one statistic to help understand that. In Siaya County, that's in Western Kenya, they have 80% of their land is arable. But in Marsabit County, Northern Kenya, the arable land is less than 10% of the landmass. So the solutions, the needs, first of all, are different, and the solutions to ensure food security, even at the county level, are very different. The problems in Western Kenya are often access to land for younger people and women, while in Northern Kenya, it's access to arable land in general and to healthy foods and so on and so forth. So the interventions at the county level then become more important in the context of agriculture because the needs in terms of extension services, in terms of knowledge on the right seeds to use, the right farming technology to apply, the best place to introduce that intervention is at the county level because the needs are very specific. And I did talk about securing communally owned lands. And for that, county governments have a specific role in, before you register communal land, the county governments hold them in trust on behalf of the communities, and they kind of have to start off the process of pushing communities towards registration of their lands. And as I mentioned before, once they register their land, they can do their land use planning and ensure optimal use of their arable lands. Still on interventions at the county level, so the other thing that I think I enjoy about seeing the organizations, even if they're national organizations, there's need to have county level structures, is in the county, if you go to, say, Kirinyaga County or any county for that matter, and you ask all the farmers and have a meeting and ask them about the issues they face and the kind of support they need, it's a very long list, but our county level CSOs, CBOs, they do a good job in consolidating these issues and kind of prioritizing and then presenting it to policymakers in the best way possible, where we can say, okay, this is what we need to push in our messaging first. This will have more consequence if we don't address it sooner, and so on and so forth, just like CD put it. Then another thing I would mention about county level interventions is the solutions don't necessarily have to be extremely complex. Sometimes we just need some good social innovation that can move us forward. So I'll give example of some of the things we've done at TMG Research. And in Western Kenya, the reason why I know about the arable land in Western Kenya is because we've done some work on promoting formal land leasing to encourage more people to practice sustainable land management practices. But one of the challenges is because of cultural practices and many other reasons, a lot of people don't have access to farmlands because you'll find the older male head of the family is the one who owns the land and he has power over the land. And as I mentioned before, if people don't feel any ownership of the land, they are less incentivized to invest in sustainable land management practices. So one of the ways we were introducing to solve this was introducing formal leasing, where the people who hold the land can feel more secure as they lease it out to other people. And also the young people and women can go out there and access more lands to practice agriculture and not be limited by the reason of my father still owns the land, and if I could start doing something, they might change their plans for the land. Then another social innovation that I am particularly proud of that we were a part of at TMG is we had something called the Governor's Day with Farmers in Kakamega County. And this is something we just thought of, how can we get the farmers to at least to the top office in the county level, which is one day in February last year where the governor comes, meets all the farmers. Of course, we work with CBOs who had consolidated the issues and put it in the right messaging, but it really helps to know that the top person in the county cares about the agricultural issues. And this, I guess, is important for any county because it would show on their side as politicians, they are happy to always show the people that they care about the issues. So the Governor's Day Farmers one of those we were very proud to support, and we are no longer involved in it, but there's a second one coming up towards the end of this month. And it's a new governor who is in Kakamega County. So I'm happy that the Kakamega County Farmers Association and Shibuya community health workers who we've worked with are trying to continue push that and make it regular. And maybe for Kajabora, if they had a governance day with farmers, they would avoid more revolutions.
But I don't want to play devil's advocate, but they did. They had a djembe day, and Mona came and made a series of broken promises, and then went back and sort of, gave a certain picture, but that didn't reflect the truth. So I'm gonna.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't want to be
Djembe Day-
cruel, but we also know like what politicking looks like and campaigning. I guess my question would be, did it have any impact? Last year, where there was this sort of proximity between the governor, high-level office, and farmer organizations?
So our target for the Governor's Day with Farmers last year was to get the governor to commit in writing, in some form of commitment to what they can do in the 1 year. Now, unfortunately, it was an election year, and this was in February, then things may not have gone as we would have wanted. But the win I will take from that whole situation is that the new governor has been pushed to again do it. And it was more of like an accountability measure. I mean, if this year Kakamega is it's an agriculture county. So if they have the Governor's Day with Farmers this year, and the governor promises whatever they promise in terms of interventions to improve the situation for smallholder farmers, and by February next year, if he cannot report enough changes that have happened, we want to create that space where they can at least start addressing the issues one-on-one, and the governor won't be able to hide maybe behind. I mean, I'm happy that the governors attended this thing, and I hope the new governor will attend the new one. And if they have that conversation more consistently, maybe there's more political support for what we can do for smallholder farmers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have another event next year, and we'll ask you if it's had any,
Definitely.
any success.
I'll be happy to report.
Okay. Zara, so just talking about things that might work, what does responsible digital agriculture look like? I mean, this is such a thing that's like, what is this? Drones and data capture, and how does it work? We can't touch it, we can't see it. What are ways that, I guess, Kenyan farmers, what are ways we can protect ourselves? Not only farmers, but organizations that are assisting as some sort of like support or in a middle capacity between, Google and Facebook and, an SMS happening on the farm.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, like with all these systems, I think the issue of who is behind these technologies, who exerts control over them, and who can actually own and use them is key to what we can actually do. And so it's hard in the current setup to imagine responsible digital farming. I mean, I don't know if some of you know about Twiga Foods, but that's an interesting project that was supposed to be, was started by a US academic, and he claimed to want to connect small vendors with farmers directly. But what's happened is that now, all these other players came in. They got funding from Goldman Sachs, from the French family that owns Auchan supermarkets, IBM, and now what I hear from a lot of people who have used, and also Microsoft Digital Platform is part of that. And now it seems that this very nicely sounding project actually has ended up cutting out the small vendors. And now Twiga's directly supplying consumers and has actually undermined the vendors who they were supposedly supposed to be helping. So, you really have to look at how power works and how these structures are set up. And I don't think you can have responsible digital farming in the current setup. I think that, it has to be put back into farmers' hands, and, agroecology and food sovereignty still has to be at the center of all, of any kind of sustainable farming system. And farmers have to be able to control the data that is being generated. So, whether you have weather data, genetic data, this has to be in the public sphere, not, available for commercial exploitation. And there actually are some initiatives that have free and open software in which algorithms and data are not proprietary, and they're actually controlled by those who create the data. So, for example, there's a Farm Hack initiative, and that's like a platform to share farming tools and knowledge amongst farmers across the world. There's also the right to repair movement. So a lot of farmers that buy equipment like tractors from John Deere, they're allowed to operate the tractor, but they don't actually own the tractor or the data that's generated from it. So there's, they're not even allowed to repair the equipment when it breaks. So there's like things like the right to repair movement. So people are trying to take back control in that digital space. But also, like, one of the things we do at ETC Group is we try to push for technology assessment, participatory technology assessment, where people can actually look at these technologies and try to understand who's behind them, what impact they're actually going to have before they come to be introduced into a country or a community. People have the right to know what this is, and so far we don't have access to that kind of information. You just have these startups, these agri-tech startups that come and really get funding to do pretty much whatever they want. So I think, technology assessment is also really, really important.
Okay, thank you so much. CD, last one for you, and then I'm going to open up for audience Q&A. So, what are we fighting for in Kenya? What does this local food system look like?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Maybe before I want to weigh in on something that is spoke about the counties. It is very important because the counties are becoming the new frontier for the multinationals. Because you find that we have few civil society groups or movements who can be able to organize. Because over 80% of donor funding resides in the cities. So you find that those groups in the rural areas, in the grassroots, hardly receive any funding. So you find that the Syngentas, those companies, they target the county assemblies and the county executives to push in and very unpopular laws. If you look at the Climate Change Acts, the seeds, you find that they are really being influenced by these multinationals. So it's very, very much important for the movements and the actors to also work in the counties or help strengthening groups that work in the counties. Like, for example, in Bungoma County, last year we were able to have a meeting between the Department of Climate Change, and we were able to develop a memorandum of understanding that is going to govern how the CSOs and the county government is going to work on combating climate change. So it's very, very much important. On Tuesday we shall also be, on Wednesday we shall be in Migori with the same forum again. But back to your question, see, my ideal food system is a localized food system. Because, as much as possible, we need to reduce the food miles. Because if you're talking about emission, and then you consume food that has come all the way from the US to Mariwa Market, where I come from, then you can, that's a false solution, because you can't again claim to say that we're fighting climate change when you are using, I read this first sentence here, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. That's a very powerful statement, because you can't solve a problem using the same logic that created it. So we need to, I was having a discussion with my comment there about food corps and consumers associations, and how we can be able to create a sustainable food system that is working for everybody. And I think it is important, if you go to the local markets, I come from a place called Mariwa Market, it has collapsed because of Sony Sugar Company. Everybody went to sugar plantation. So there's nothing to be sold in the market. So we should first start by capturing those markets, by ensuring that the people who are around there, the farmers who are around there, grow food that is consumed locally. We have had situations where farmers, like right now, Aga Khan Foundation, the other time they called us at, we have seen your website, you're having clusters, why can't you help them form the clusters, and then we give them seeds and we'll buy it from them. Then we told them, why do you want to give us seeds when we already have our own seeds? You see, that was a simple answer. So you find that the moment the farmers are producing food that is not consumed locally, then we are killing our markets, then our food sovereignty, seed sovereignty is affected. So ideally, anywhere where we have arable land, we need to encourage the farmers there to produce food that is consumed locally. Farmers need to save seeds. We need to have trainings on seed selection. We need to have building capacity of youths on how, because we did a small survey, the village of 100 homesteads, and maybe we're having 300 households, and each household spends at least 100 shillings on vegetables alone. So we did a calculation, that is around 30,000 per day. So it means that if the locals, the youths who are saying there's no employment, they can produce food that is being consumed by the 300 households, then we'll solve the problem of employment and we'll be having sustainable food. So the problem that we're having is that the foods that are being grown in our localities are not consumed there, and therefore people are faced with hunger, because you cannot eat sugarcane when you're hungry. You cannot eat coffee when you are hungry, but at least if you have terere and brenda, you can cook it and eat it. So a localized food system, we need to have farm inputs that are produced by the farmers, composting, improving our soils. The farmers need to own water, because if you cannot harvest water, the counties have a responsibility of stormwater management. We need to push them to ensure that the water can be harvested so that the farmers can be able to access water. So the whole food sovereignty to us is the farmer taking control of the whole food production system, farmers and consumers, so that we get rid, as Maikome was telling me, the middlemen, the brokers, data. You talked about data, and he was telling me the same thing there, that these companies use data to control our farmers. So how can we be able to generate that data for ourselves so that our farmers can know where they can sell their produce? The consumers can know where they can get the markets, you know. So I think, to me, an ideal localized food system is a system where we revive our markets, we grow local food to ensure that everybody is food sovereign. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. CD, thank you so much.
I just wanted to add one.
Sure, yeah, you can, and then we'll open, yeah.
Just in, building on what CD was saying, I think, it's interesting they asked you, can we give you seeds? And I think one of the things that we really have to do is to question these kind of narratives. You need seeds, you need these kind of inputs, you need hybrid varieties. This idea that, there's this narrative, as I was saying before about the data, is that you can have better farming, more efficient farming. And one of the entities that I think, is all over the place and is really pushing for an industrial food system is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And they are really exerting a huge influence on how on the food system and how it's being transformed in the South. And it's really very dangerous. And so I think that's something that people really have to sort of expose what they're doing. And there are really amazing groups like, your group, and also La Via Campesina, the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, was, fighting for agroecology and local food systems. So I think that's also something that people can do.
Cool, thank you so much, Zara. Let's open up to the floor. We have some roaming mics. Chief, please will you join us? We've got, I think we'll use these two. And maybe Khadija, or could somebody help? Yeah, Maureen, maybe you help us, yeah. So, guys, I invite you questions, but also feel free to share your own story or your own commentary or your own input. We've got a lot of experiences and expertise in the rooms, or how you relate to some of the themes that we've spoken to today. So it doesn't have to be such a static two-dimensional thing. I'm going to start with this lady here, please, in the black, and then we'll go over to the gentleman with 22 on his top. I might also just come down. Then I can be a bit more mobile. Okay, go for it. And maybe you could just mention your name, where you're from, just briefly, and then direct your question to somebody would be great.
All right, thank you. My name is Angel Muthia. I am the winner of Miss President Season 2, and I come here with a question for CD. My question is, how can students and young people like myself contribute to the movement of food security and climate change and environmental sustainability? Because we have one thing in common. We have the spirit of revolution in us, and I think we have a lot to contribute, both the might and the intelligence that can be contributed to that movement. And then secondly, I like what Chief has captured in this graphic novel about women coming into the space of food security movements. And I mean, we need to also highlight how much women and girls are mostly affected by the problems of food security and the governance of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just pass it here. response and then 2 questions. Okay, just to keep.
Greetings to you all. My name is Busera Mohammed. I run a not-for-profit organization called the Nation of Patriots. And within it, we have a segment for agriculture, and we call it the Nation of Patriots Ministry of Agriculture. And I also founded a publication called the Patriot Speaks newspaper, which is a weekly publication that we use for advocacy. So I want to ask my sister from ETC, and I want to know what efforts are you taking to collaborate, especially with people who are in research and publication, because I see an agricultural journalist here, my sister, and I know that there is much work that can be done in that. So what efforts are you taking so that we can take these things to the people in a language that is simple and understandable? And my last question goes to CD Otieno. You talked about pushing the county governments. And you know how government sometimes can be a scam. So this idea of pushing, why not just, what are you doing to create study groups and training units within the local communities so that people can start taking action by themselves, preserving their own seeds and probably sharing the seeds within the community, rather than trying to push for legislation? And you know, some of these legislation come with an agenda from whoever is funding it. I heard you mention people like Syngenta and whatnot. And you know, money is very powerful. It's more powerful than even the devil. So I want to know the efforts that you are taking to create these study groups and training units. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I don't want to respond for KPL, but I don't know if their mandate is training and study groups, and certainly CD and KPL are not, you know, policy pushers and legislation drafters. They're doing public protest and really using the current legal framework to fight back. So, but I will let CD also maybe mention it. So we had a first question, which was for CD. Do you want to respond at first, and then we'll go to Washe? And then Zara. Oh, and then Zara. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much. The first question, first of all, congratulations, Madam President. How can students contribute to the food sovereignty or food security movement? It's very important. Yeah, because, you know, during my days in University of Nairobi, Upper Kabete, we used to say the students are the cream of the society. And it means that today we have seen, in our days in Sonu, we used to speak about issues in the media, and when the audience see that these are university students, they'll take you seriously because they know you are learned. And you know, in the case that we are having in the court, we are seeing people saying, no, we are scientists, we are experts. No, you are just farmers. You can't speak about this issue. So it's very important for the students to organize themselves. And even out, I know most of the student unions have been compromised or have been deliberately killed, but it is good to create caucuses, just like what is talking about study groups. We need to have students from agriculture, for example, coming to the communities, because it is sad that myself, I took BSc in agriculture, range management. And the reason why I worked for 2 years at KWS, and when they were giving us opportunity for early, is it early retirement or what? Then I asked myself, how can I be having a degree of agriculture and in my own community, crops are failing? And that's the motivation that made us to form the Kenyan Peasants League, because we felt we needed to have a space where we can champion for the rights of farmers. And tying it to Mr. Busera's question, in Kenya Peasant League, we have clusters, and these clusters are community-based. They are led, and those are the clusters that are pushing for, when we're talking about pushing the government, it doesn't mean that we are not creating alternatives. That's why we have events like Summer School in April, which will take place in Migori County, where farmers come up with, to showcase their innovations in the local farms, theorize, discuss their problems. We always have seed exchange programs 2 times in a year within our clusters. we also contribute to policy debates, because when the county, like when the county was preparing the CIDP, in Migori County, in Nairobi County, in the counties that we're working, we were able to have our members go there and make contribution and pitch tent for more allocations to go to, let me say, water conservation, rainwater harvesting, soil, because those are functions of the county. Improving soil is a function of the county. Conserving water is a function of the county. So we want Leaves in Genta to influence that process. When they are calling people for public participation, we go there and also give our views. And that's why we're having a different or a multi-pronged approach. The reason why we are focusing on some of the legislations is because when they become law and they're going to be used. In Migori County now, because the county uses county funds, which is taxpayers' money, to buy seeds from this multinational and distribute to farmers. Then we're asking them, this is our taxes. And what about me who doesn't want those seeds? It means I'm paying taxes, but I'm not benefiting. So we need to have these debates. And I agree with you. We need to have these study groups elsewhere. University students who come from those communities, who have the knowledge, can help in organizing the farmers, in organizing the consumers, so that they can be able to engage better and robustly with those authorities. We cannot escape from engaging with the government, because they are now getting taxes from us. So we have to also ensure that our agenda is taken care of.
Santi, thank you, CD. Zara, would you just mind answering the gentleman's question? Yeah, and then we'll open up again.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm very curious to know more about your newspaper. So at ETC Group, we produce a lot of things. We produce a lot of research on the impact of new technologies on agriculture and biodiversity. And some of these are very long, detailed, in-depth reports that are usually used by people who are working on policy, who go to food summits, the Convention on Biological Diversity, so that people know exactly what's going on. So a lot of what I said today came from a report we did called The Food Barons. It's very long, it's like 143 pages, it's very detailed, but it will give you all the information about exactly what's happening in the industrial food system in all the different sectors, agrochemicals, seeds, pesticides, and who's controlling what. But so what we've been doing more and more of late is trying to produce more accessible materials. So we did the animation with Freehand on Big Brother Comes to the Farm, which is all about digital agriculture, digital farming. And we produce a lot of, podcasts and stuff like this. And we're hoping to do more and more things in different languages. But one of the things we do with journalists is we collaborate a lot with the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, and we work with journalists on the continent to cover some of these issues. So we've had narrative workshops on how to think about how narratives are constructed around the food system in English and French. And we'd be very happy to connect with more people, and would be very happy to speak with you, because as you know, like, this is also a narrative war in a way, because like all these words we hear you really need to deconstruct them, but in order to do so, you really have to know who's behind them, what they're doing. So I'd be very happy to connect.
Awesome, thank you so much. More questions or comments? Yes, okay.
Okay.
Wait, I said we'd take two, so we'll take one here and then one over there. Thank you so much.
Okay, my name is Mark Ambitho, and my question will basically go to Kazungu, Zara, and Sidi Otieno.
You got 4 questions or one question?
No, one
and you
question.
want an answer from
one
all
question,
4?
but I think they have touched.
But we want to let other people also respond.
Yeah,
maybe we'll give your question to Washe.
Yeah.
Okay, Kazungu,
so,
and then we'll open it.
Yeah,
That's
so
okay.
I think he touched about something very important. I'm asking this because I have a specialization in technology transfer and innovation from Jawaharlal Nehru University. Having done my undergraduate from Punjab Agricultural University. I think Punjab Agricultural University is the one which ushered the Green Revolution in India, where we were there together with Kabogo, the former governor, and Waititu, I think, came over there for some time. Okay? And maybe the MP, the governor of Makueni, Mtula Kilosa Jr. did a law there when he was there. So, I want to ask you about the problem you talked about. I think the problem of food security in Kenya comes to the aspect of land tenure, which we talked about. But I think it's something that fragmentation of land. We have not consolidated land. I think the way the peasants have fragmented land is not possible to comprehensively produce food sustainably, to support yourself and also support others. Because I think right now there are two products. Wheat and maize will never be sufficient. We have to import. And that shows actually the kind of system on our farms, the way they are going to. Second question goes to Zara.
Maybe just, sorry,
the last one.
Okay.
Zara,
There's been lots of hands, thank you.
I told you my specialization in technology transfer and innovation. And even today I was just in an Africa Agri-Tech forum yesterday. I think you were there at KCC. There was a forum. And the question is, in India, Brazil, South Africa, every country is moving to agri-tech, AI, artificial intelligence, big data, and it has revolutionized the peasantry farming in India. The value chain has improved. Farmers are getting money. The multinationals are coming in. And if this is working in Brazil, it's working in India, they're joining the most advanced countries. Why should us people continue with all the ways that we used to cultivate without using this big data, artificial intelligence, value chain, things like that? Thank you.
Santi, thank you. And we just had a question here. No, sorry, it was just over here, and then I'll take two more rounds. Thank you.
Good evening to all of us. My name is Hilary Matano, and my question goes to Chief. It's an unconventional question, I believe. Given the blind spot is the first of its kind that is using, I believe, let me say art, to pass the message on the need for change in the food system and the ownership, what do you think is the future? Or what do you think is the future of art playing a critical role in shaping the conversation in the food ecosystem?
Thank you so much, Hilary. Nice to see you here. We'll take those responses, and then I'll open up again. Yep. Washe?
Okay, thank you for the question. And you spoke of land fragmentation being a problem and the sizes of land being unproductive, right? Yeah, so the solution to the problem of land fragmentation is land consolidation. But the solution is a policy level intervention. This cannot happen by just talking to individual farmers. It would go further if you were to take it from a policy level, even at the county level, to convince more people that it is worth considering consolidating our land and producing as groups instead of always subdividing our lands. So policy would be the solution, but then beyond policy, we would need a lot of sensitization to adjust our cultural norms, because I know the way we got to this, one of the ways we got to this fragmentation problem was my father, when he's old, when he is about to pass on, he divides the land to for me and my brothers, me and my two brothers. And when we are old, we do the same for the next and the next and the next. And that's how we got to where we are at. So then that's a culture issue which we also need to change. But then to change that culture, we will need to invest in some communication and sensitization to convince everyone that this other way can work. And still on the land consolidation and the interventions that can help, registering land registration could go also a long way in people feeling the need to divide the land and retitle it and so on. Because some of these lands, they're not titled, they're not registered. So people are subdividing and they want to own the whole. But I want to believe if this was, say, something under a family name and we know we can remain with the title and we can use parcels separately, then we can consolidate our lands and maybe get more from the arable lands that we have.
Okay, thank you so much, Washe. Zara, to you again, please.
Yeah, I'll say a few words. I also think Sidi should answer this question. I find this question surprising because I think, and probably requires a whole day of talking. You're saying that this system and agri-tech and innovation and digital farming and industrial food system is working. I'm not sure what you mean by it's working. Working for who? And you're saying a lot of money is coming in from multinationals. Yes, it's coming in from multinationals. Why? Why is it coming in? Who is actually making money in this food system? And, you know, I mean, you're talking about Brazil and India. Brazil has terrible, terrible problems from its agricultural system. I mean, they have cut so much forest for growing beef and soy, huge plantations that are actually contributing to the climate crisis and are destroying the Amazon. So Brazil's agricultural system is not working. It's actually a mess, and it's very much tied up with high-level politics, a lot of bribery scandals involving one of the biggest companies, JBS, which is one of the biggest beef producers in the world. So actually this system is very, very destructive to the environment. It is destroying indigenous food systems. I would say it's another kind of colonialism. It's, you know, people are losing their land. There's a lot of land grabs under this system as well. There's so much to say, but the system is not working for farmers or for ordinary people. It's working for large agribusiness companies. It's working for large tech companies. It's working for lots of people in government. But it's actually going to destroy our food system in the South.
You said Indian farmers are making money. I think it's only last year when we've had the longest farmers march in India. You see, the farmers can't be marching when they're making money. It means that money is not going to farmers' pockets. It's going to those multinationals you are saying are coming to India. And in Kajibora County, I hope you have gone through the book, it is those multinationals that were being fought because they are controlling the food production system. And that's what we are fighting. As KPL, multinationals have got no reason or business. Those who are not farmers have got no business making decisions on behalf of farmers. Because huwezi kusema that you are not a farmer, like we have a farmers party of Kenya, and then the people who are leading the farmers party are businessmen and women, you know. If that party is not led by farmers, like Chama cha Wakulima in this county, then it's not a farmers party, it's a party that is brokering farmers to earn money.
Thank you. Thank you, Sidi. Chief, yeah, just back to respond to Hillary.
Yes, Hillary, that was a beautiful question. As individuals, how the world comes to us is in fragments. We don't get a picture of the whole universe simultaneously. You know, you experience your own hardships, your own, you know, maybe through a little bit of education, you might specialize in one topic like agriculture or you know, different. We see the world as fragments, and even when you watch the news, the news comes to you in fragments. You know, you get bulletin. This has happened at this location at this time, and blah blah blah. And very rarely do all of them come together and cohere into one picture of the world that you can act on. And even the way our institutions are, the way states are organized in the world, they are so badly organized. And so badly organized to respond to the challenges that we're facing. Something like climate change affects so many states. You know, catastrophes, like you've seen the earthquake that happened affected, you know, multiple countries, and the way human beings are organized is very fragmented. And art is really, I feel, the most powerful tool for bringing all these things together and going to the root of where, you know, power issues, politics intersect with ecology, intersect with you know, social history, technology, all these things. When you're looking at them from a specialized lens, it's very difficult to you know, to form one simplified narrative that people can act on. You know, because ultimately the reason why we are doing this is that we want to politicize people. You know, there's somebody who spoke about wanting to avoid government, and you know, as Kenyans, I can sympathize with that impulse. We all have that impulse of wanting to avoid dealing with governance issues because they seem so intractable. But you know, when we get to the bottom of it, you know, we have to be politicized, and people are not going to be politicized by specialized high-level technical information. People will be politicized by a simple message. You know, something like what you see at the back of this book here. We stand for the human right to food. We stand against the politics of hunger. You know, that's what art does. So I don't have to be an expert in these issues. I myself am a student of these issues. I spent most of my time while creating this book as a student, listening. But when you reduce that into a story that a person who does not have high-level education, master's degree in agroecology can be able to identify and say, this is how I'm being hurt, this is how this seed issue is hurting me, then you're not going to politicize people. And when you look at revolutions around the world, if you look at, I don't know if you know this poet, what was his name, the guy from Czech Republic, you know, many poets, you know, like the Leopold Senghor, there was the other guy, what was the poet guy, from Czech Republic, the president, I forget his name. Someone, I know there's someone in here who knows his name. Kafka, exactly, Kafka. There's a reason why people get politicized by poets and people who are in humanities, because that's really what we need. We need art, we need music. You know, I might not necessarily agree with Wajakoya's politics, but I loved how he'd show up at the rallies with music, and that's ultimately what we need. And you know, I sympathize with the person who said, let's stop asking for permission and let's force issues, and we don't do that until we become politicized, and art is the way.
Nice, Chief, thank you so much. So my friend here, and then over there, we'll take 2, and then 3, and then 1 more. Yeah. We need a lady. Right here. Yes. Yeah. She's here in the front, perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Allow me to use Swahili instead of English, please. Amjamboni. Naitwa Salim Mganga. First of all, kitu ile ambaye tunastahili kuelewa ni kwamba Wakenya ni watu wa ignorance. Ni watu ambaye wataki ukweli. Watu ambaye wanajifanya ni kwamba hawajui na wanajua. Unawezaje kusema kwamba unataka kwamba kuona chakula katika nchi yako na uhitaji food security? Duniani hakuna nchi nyingine mbali na Kenya. Neno la pili, unataka upande chakula ile ambayo umeletewa ambayo hautarudisha mbegu. Na unasema ukituambia India, unatuambia Japani, sijui unatuambia nini. Na wewe unasahau kwamba kwenu hakuwezi saa mahindi kama Kitale. Unajua kabisa. Really, brother. Na una expect uwe na mahindi, utaipata wapi? In this country we have only 800,000 farmers. Wale ambao wako wapi? Kitale. Na nchi ambayo iko na watu 50 million. How stupid you are, usimame useme kwamba unataka change na uwe na chakula katika nchi yako. Ukiangalia National Cereal Board Act, kuna haki ya kununua mahindi at least 100 bucks. Lakini maximum hakuna, hiyo iko open. Una expect to pata change. Alafu na waste a lot of time kuzungumzia. Wakati tulikuwa na seed tukiwa by safety authority, Mheshimiwa City, watu walikuwa nazimama wanatuangalia kama criminals. Kweli uongo? Kama criminals. Na tunawapigania hao wenyewe. That means wale unapigania wajui kama unapiganiwa. Problem kwanza tuianzie na young men. Watu ambaye wajijui kabisa. Kabisa, wacha niwaambie wazi, mnichukie lakini ukweli ama si kweli. Ikiwa kama kuna watu useless ni hawa Kenya. Useless. Why nasema ni useless? First of all, nataka kuambia, today wanakuambia we are young men, we want to change this modern Kenya. Story ambayo haina mwelekeo. During our time of young men, tukiwa young na kina Sidi hawa, just 2004, 2005, tulikuwa napigania katiba. Tunapigana day and night na polisi. Kweli uongo? Nyinyi mnapigania nini? Mnapigania nini? Just a few months ago, mlikuwa mnasema you are hasira, you want to change. Now, what are you doing? 2, unasema na students. Uko pale Kenya Pesa League. Kenya Pesa League. Iko na students wa University of Nairobi. Ni Kenyatta University kweli? Ninajua wangapi? Walikuwa hapo more than 10. Hao wengine walienda wapi? You want to be paid, uende maandamano for your change. Yaani mimi nikulipe ufanye kazi wewe yako. Na una expect, unasema you know, I'm young, so what? Yes, you are young, so what? Try to change. If you want to change, start with you. If you want change, start with you. Simple and clear. History nyingi haitasaidia. Mtaongea muongee na baadaye mtabaki hapo bila way forward, na by the end of the day mtakuwa useless generation. Mimi nataka kumaliza. Samani kidogo, naomba nimalize tu. Niwaambie hivi. Katika Uislamu unasema, hadithi ya Mtume Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam inasema, mwenye kudhulumiwa na mwenye kudhulumu siku ya kiyama nyote motoni. Kwa nini waambiwa hivyo? Mwenye kudhulumiwa anawekwa motoni kwa sababu amedhulumiwa na akanyamaza, na mwenye kudhulumu anawekwa jehanamu kwa sababu anawekwa motoni na afanya nini? Amefanya makosa ya kudhulumu watu. Kwa hivyo tafadhali, kama wewe unaona unanyanyaswa na unajua ni wapi unastahili kufanya nini na utaki kufanya, amini usiamini, hapa duniani utakuwa na shida na siku ya kiyama jehanamu. Mungu awabariki na awape hekima.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to ask the sound team to address the mic issue because there's feedback. Scooter Institute sound team, if you are around, that would be great. Please.
Thank you.
A question or short or long? Or,
usikonde.
Okay.
My government names are John Mulingwa, but my movement name is Garang Mzalendo. I come from Kenyans for Tax Justice Social Movement, and our movement's business is questioning why our taxes are used to oppress us. That is what we do at Kenyans for Tax Justice. And first of all, Chief, good work. Makofi kwa Chief. Yes, this is a very good political education tool in the Kenya of today. In fact, I don't know if when you are developing it, you had this current government in mind. Yeah, because it seems like it's the plot is all about that the hustlers of Kajibora organized and took over power, then things happened. And I hope we will have a second edition where now we talk about real organizing and removing multinationals and the collaborators. You know, even during Mau Mau days, there were collaborators and home guards. Yes. My issue is now we have been speaking here about farmers and all that, and we saw the other day when the cabinet ordered that GMOs come to Kenya. Now is when we are seeing the government registering farmers. To what end? And with what motive? We need to question such things. So they need data so that they can give Bill Gates and all other GMO players. We as a movement and as organizers, the knowledge on GMO at the grassroots is not adequate, is inadequate. And when people talk about GMO at the grassroots level, the information is not accurate, the information is not simplified. Because if we talk about GMO using scientific terms at the grassroots, people don't connect with whatever you are talking about, because people just hear the word GMO, but when you ask people what is GMO, they are not aware. So I think we as a collective and as a movement, we need to think through on how we can simplify the message and make sure that people at the grassroots get to hear, to get the information. And also we need to boldly map these multinationals that are selling us seeds and all these, the people who are commercializing our food. We need to like name them, those Syngentans, those Bill Gates, whoever is having that business of personalizing our food. We need them, and we need to name them, we need to shame them, we need to show people that this is the devil. Yeah, and who doesn't have good intentions with our food. As we speak now, people are not eating out here. We might think people are having food, but people are not eating. Food is not affordable. It's no longer affordable out there. And we need to do something. You know, my brother who said that we need to be diplomatic when defending our rights, we are sorry, some of us, we don't know that language. We know that our right, we have to fight for your right. Even freedom doesn't come easily. You have to fight for it. So I think now with the food cost, because we are the people who have been campaigning, in the last 10 years, our campaigns have been based on unga 30 bob. Because we believe if unga is affordable, even peace can be experienced in the country. Now, the country is calm, but it's not peaceful. That's why you see people, nowadays Kenyans are angry over small matters. It's not about that, it's that things are unaffordable. And finally, we as a movement, we need to have that strength of people who are talking about food. You know, food is something very important. And we need to organize seriously around it. We need to bring all the movements together. And I hope we can organize a food march soon, so to push the government, because being told that for us to have unga 30 bob, it needs to be planted, then we wait it to be harvested, then for it to be sold to someone so he can prepare it for us. That is, when is that? See, we are told Galana Kulalu, Galana Kulalu. Galana Kulalu has been planted in the last 10 years, but we have not seen food. Where does that food go to? We need to ask these hard questions. We need to organize people. People are angry. So when you see Kenyans are angry and are overreacting on other issues, those are not the main problem. The problem is the stomach. If people do not have food in their plates, if people do not eat, soon and very soon, a revolution is coming. And a revolution sweeps whoever is there or not. So I urge this forum to continue with these discussions and these debates. Let us strengthen our networks. Let us make sure that we reach out to each other. And we organize an action soon, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we'd be happy to get your details afterwards. CD and I were in a GM workshop just 2 weeks ago. We want to bring more people in to assist with mobilization, to assist with awareness specifically around the court case. Also happy to take your details afterwards and connect you, show you some of the resources that we've prepared that have named these companies that are influencing our food system, and the ETC group report would be one of them. So we'll talk afterwards, please. Thank you. I've got my friend with the cap and then the lady in the front. Please, very short, because we are actually running out of time now. We weren't, but we are. So please keep your remarks or your questions succinct. I appeal to you both. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. My name is Nick Nyaga. I'm one of the few urban farming here. I do farming at my plot. And I can assure you, we have no scarcity of land in Nairobi or in Kenya, and we have no scarcity of water. So what is lacking is, we have a lot of knowledge at universities and whatever, but there is a disconnect between that kind of the knowledge and the practical application to the farmers. For example, I use about less than half a liter to water some tomatoes there, and I can produce even half a kilo per day. If you can calculate the cost of half a liter of water and the 1 kg of tomato, I think it is possible. If at all we can do 60-story building, I think we can also do story building of the urban farming or other areas. So my task is, how can you task our government to utilize the research, because they are very costly, so that they can trickle down to the people.
Okay.
Because now the fact remains the water catchment areas are shrinking. The population in Kenya is growing at about 1 million per day, per year. About 1 million per year, sorry. So I think you can guess by maybe 20 years to come, how many people will be. Okay. And if at all you are using the same farming method or whatever, do you think it is sustainable? Okay, my task is that we just task the government, and also we come up with the different ways how we can have a food security in our nation.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very much. My dear, yes. It's coming just behind you. Perfect.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mwikali Mutinda. I'm a journalist, I'm an artist, and an upcoming farmer. So I was in the middle of panicking when the government said they were going to be importing maize, and I'm in the middle of harvesting and wondering what's going on now, what is going to happen to my maize, you know what I mean? Yeah, but also, as an artist, I'm in the middle of a project. For the past 2 years, we've been researching on GMO, because we're trying to use theater to break down complicated terminologies about science. And by the way, Chief, big up, good job. This is amazing. Like, this is really the way to go, using art to break down these terms, because most of the times we are hit by terminologies and we don't know what to do, and people just act out of panicking and we don't know what's going to happen. They said statistics. Oh my goodness, statistics are going to kill us. Because we just don't understand. These things have not been broken down to us. You know what I mean? So that is the journey we've been taking, trying to, do research, understand what this whole GMO thing is about. And there's something really interesting that we found out in the middle of it, just talking to farmers and people who have been, who have been doing this. Like, the shocking thing is the GMO thing has been happening. Our farmers have been using GMO stuff, and so you go to some places and you find some land has just been abandoned, and you're thinking, these people are lazy. Why are they not farming? Why are they not planting things here? But that land, that soil is dead, because they start using these pesticides, then they get bigger pests, then they'll need stronger pesticides, then again bigger pesticides that way. And then at the end of the day, you find that the soil is gone. You cannot, the soil cannot support anything, So I think my question would go to Mr. Kazungu. When you're doing this, when you're interacting with farmers and also engaging the governors and all those people, are you, like, specifically about the GMO issue, are the farmers aware, or we are just running with the most convenient, positive side, if I can call it, quote unquote, that, because most of the farmers are telling us we are going for GMO because our food will not take forever in the farms, so quick money. We're farming 2 months, 3 months later, we are harvesting, we sell, we make money, and bigger money, as someone said earlier, But are you communicating the side effects of this? Do the farmers, are they well informed? And also maybe to Mr. Sidi, what can be done to heal our soil? Because in most of these regions, it's dead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. So we'll close with this. So Washe and then Sidi. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start with the question from the back. I think the question I got is, the land is available, but you're not making the best use of the land. And the response I can give to this is to get to that optimal use of the land, the first thing we need to do is to securing the land will help, which is formal registration, titling, and so on. And the problem with the formal registration, if I could just put on my land governance hat for a bit, is there is just not enough. The institutional framework is there, but we need more human resource to ensure we can register lands in timely manner. The second thing after securing the lands through formal registration would be land use planning. And once again, we'll go back to what CD mentioned and what I also touched on the role of county governments. So county governments are supposed to develop something called a county spatial plan, which is basically saying these lands will be used for this manner, and these other lands will be used for this manner, and so on and so forth. But I think so far maybe 3 counties, since that's 10 years ago when we passed the new constitution, over 10 years ago, but only 3 counties have come up with a spatial plan. But ideally, if we have a spatial plan, then we can go down to the next step, which would be agricultural policies, and these are county specific, that would be informed by these plans and would try to now make the best use of what we have, because the land we have is finite, it's a fixed amount of land. The best we can do is make the most out of what we already have.
Yes, please, yeah, you can.
Yeah, on the second question, I think the part which I can speak to is you were talking about our Governors' Day with farmers and whether we were engaging the issues about GMO and so on. So unfortunately, by the time we were having our first Governors' Day with farmers, this GMO topic was not yet a big deal the way it is right after the new government came in. And what I'll say is, to respond to how we can use such a forum like the Governors' Day with farmers is we will still need organizations at the county level and organizations like Kenya Peasants League and many others to engage the farmers at that level, to inform them, because I think the gentleman at the back mentioned that a lot of farmers also don't know what exactly is the issue with GMO, and we need to engage them to get so that they can, on their own volition, make the decision what they don't like or what they like about GMO. And then the same organizations at county levels can now consolidate and present these issues on days like Governors' Day with farmers to say, we have interacted with the farmers, we are presenting the summary of the issues, and the summary is they also equally do not like the direction we are taking with regard to farming and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Washi.
Thank you.
Thank you. CD, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. My question was, the question was what can be done to improve or heal our soils. The first step is to stop using the pesticides. That's the first step. And then let us grow indigenous seeds. Let us train farmers, or train ourselves how to compost, how to use animal manure. There's a problem, most farmers, when they harvest, they cut, if it's maize, after harvesting maize, they cut the stalks and burn them. Now, when you're burning it, you are burning the nutrients. Yeah? So we also need to see how can we recycle them so that we can recycle nutrients back to the soil. And we have a program within KPL which is to train our members on composting at the home level, using the remains of food, using all the organic materials. And this has been working because we find that some soils that could not produce in the past, we have seen evidence with the farmers themselves giving testimonies. So we need to get away from the industrial inputs that, it is funny that you are being given, 1 acre fund. They give you maize seeds, and then they give you the pesticides, the fertilizers, and the herbicides. And then after that, when you have not paid, they come for your harvest, but they leave your soil destroyed. So you have lost like 3 times. So we need to ensure that we have simplified trainings geared towards improving the capacity of the smallholder food producers to be able to improve their soils in their own homesteads. And even in terms of land use planning, you also need to plan the use of land in your own homestead. Where do you grow food? How do you deal with waste? You see, how do you control soil erosion? Simple things like that will help in actually improving our soils after some time. So it is very much important for us to, like right now, transitioning from industrial farming to agroecology is very, very much important. And we need to ensure that farmers organize themselves, have farmers training days and farmers training sessions, whereby those farmers who have got the knowledge can pass that to other farmers. And maybe to respond to what my comrade Nyaga, you see, the problem we have is food distribution. And I agree with you. You go to Nyandarua sometimes, you find cabbages are being fed to animals. Yet in Turkana, people are dying. Or farmers are throwing out or pouring out milk. Yet others. So it is because of capitalism. You walk across the street, you find a woman sleeping with her children, and the next across, there's a bed that is being sold, and nobody's lying on it. You see, that's the irony. Or you find, so if we can solve, and that we say, I want to finish by saying this, we have to get food out of trade. And that's why as a movement, we say down, down WTO, down, down World Bank. You see, and I thank Heinrich Böll Stiftung Foundation. They did a study about the perception of Kenyans on GMOs. And I think about 57% said tawe, sindio. But we need to intensify the mobility. And I agree with my comrade Nganga, comrade Garang, we need to intensify awareness in our own homesteads when we are eating, in our own churches, when you go to church, when you go to chama, when you go to market. We need to intensify by sensitizing Kenyans on the dangers of GMOs. As KPL, we don't even intend debate whether it is good or bad, because to us, it is down, down GMO. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to close it. Zara, very short, okay? Because we want people to have a chance to hear. Thank you.
It's very quickly.
Very, very.
We haven't talked about the health impacts of GMOs and pesticides. And one of the things, a really good film to watch that just came out to show what kind of health impacts you can get from these pesticides is Into the Weeds. And it's about a guy who sued Monsanto because he developed all these cancers having used these sprays for a long time. So, yeah.
And this is specifically on pesticides. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Felistus, could you come and close the day, please? Just from me, I want to say thank you to all of you for coming. Thank you so much to our panelists. Feli is the program coordinator at the Heinrich Böll Foundation. This was really her project alongside Freehand Studios, The Blind Spot. So, Feli, will you please close this event?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laila. And thank you to the panel for the amazing discussion. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. We don't take it for granted. As Laila had mentioned, I am Felistus Mwalia. I work for the Root to Food Initiative, which is a program under Heinrich Böll Foundation. Basically, Heinrich Böll Foundation is a green political foundation affiliated to the Green Party in Germany. And we are in over 30 countries all over the world. Right? Yeah. Over 33 countries all over the world. And we work on strengthening gender democracy, civic and shrinking spaces, extrajudicial killings, plastics, extractives and infrastructure, sexual and gender minority, as well as the agroecology and food rights. Thank you so much. There's tea there, so enjoy the tea. Asante sana. You can find the publication online, share widely. Yes. Thank you.